What is up, ladies and gentlemen? Welcome to the channel. My name is Michael. I hope you are having an amazing day. Continuing my Napoleon series, this time it's the Bloodiest Day, Borodino, 1812. Super excited to check this out. We're kind of hitting the climax of Napoleon's, kind of adventure, and it's looking like it's going to be downhill from the rest of here. So it'll be interesting to see exactly how this plays out, because it is the Bloodiest Day. Oof.
This Epic History TV video is brought to you by Magellan TV, the documentary streaming service. Russia, 1812. Napoleon invades his former ally with the largest army Europe has ever seen. But for the French Emperor, the decisive blow remains frustratingly beyond reach. Russia's resilience is unlike anything he's ever encountered. And as winter closes in, his army begins the most infamous retreat in history. September 1812.
Gosh.
10 weeks had passed since Napoleon invaded Russia with more than 500,000 men. The French Emperor wanted a quick victory over the Russians, one that would force Emperor Alexander to make peace and agree to French terms.
Everyone wants that.
But at Vitebsk and then Smolensk, the outnumbered Russian army had narrowly escaped his clutches. The holy city of Smolensk had been virtually destroyed. Napoleon had advanced deep into Russia, and months of marching had left his army decimated by disease and exhaustion. It was now half its original strength, and summer was nearly over. But finally, 70 miles west of Moscow, near the village of Borodino, the Russians had turned to offer battle. Napoleon would have a chance to win the decisive victory that he believed would end the war. In 1812, Napoleon was master of Europe, but his meteoric rise to power had nearly been cut short several times by cannonballs, bullets, The Russian army, commanded by the 67-year-old one-eyed veteran General Kutuzov, occupied a defensive position across the two main roads leading from Smolensk to Moscow. General Barclay de Tolly's First Army was on the right, its front protected by the Kalatsha River, steep-banked but shallow and easily forded. Prince Bagration's Second Army was on the left, a more open position but reinforced by major earthworks, the Great Redoubt, and what the French nicknamed for their shape, the Flèche, the arrows. Another forward redoubt at Shevardino was expected to delay the enemy's advance. Historians still dispute the size of the Russian army, but it's likely Kutuzov had around 121,000 men and 680 guns at Borodino. On the 5th of September, Napoleon's army began to arrive from the west, around 130,000 men and 585 guns. Napoleon quickly saw that the Shevardino redoubt would have to be taken before he could deploy his army, and ordered an immediate assault. The attack...
I mean, Napoleon, from this tactic, he's fighting into high ground. They're dug in, they're built in, so it's already going to be a tough battle. Based off the numbers that were given, Napoleon's army isn't significantly larger by any means. So they're, in a sense, fighting a losing battle. Your men have been marching, they're depleted of supplies, the weather is changing. The Russians, they're taking stuff and they're doing scorched earth. The Bloodiest Day, everything literally to this point has set up to that exact moment. Once again, look at where they were fighting on the high, or going into the high ground.
Attack was led by Compan's 5th Division of the 1st Corps, supported by the Polish 5th Corps to the south. In several hours of heavy fighting, the redoubt changed hands more than once. But late that evening, the Russians finally withdrew to their main line, and the redoubt fell to the French. Its capture had cost them an estimated 4,000 casualties, while the Russians lost around 6,000 men.
Okay, that was actually a turn.
Napoleon noted how few prisoners were taken, a worrying sign of the enemy's unbroken resolve. Both sides spent the next day preparing for battle. Marshal Davout, commanding French 1st Corps and widely considered Napoleon's most able subordinate, appealed to the Emperor to use his corps to make a wide, outflanking attack to the south. But Napoleon dismissed the...
See, that's exactly what my thought was, is you're on the high ground, you're not going, straight at them for the most part. It's not going to be successful outflanking. So it's going to be interesting to see how that exactly plays out. But once again, in some of the previous battles and conflicts, we're seeing Napoleon's ego literally get the best of him. In him not fully comprehending and still believing that he is like the best, his troops are the best. When there's definitely, a gradual decrease in the quality of the troops that he has as they have less experience. You have troops from all over, the world or all over Europe in your territories.
The idea is too risky, and instead began preparing for a massive frontal assault on the Russian defenses.
But you're relying on strength.
Shortly after dawn on the 7th of September, Orthodox priests paraded one of Russia's holiest icons, Our Lady of Smolensk, before the Russian army. It was a stirring sight for many devout Russian soldiers, thousands of whom would not live to see dusk. The battle began at 6 a.m. as French batteries opened a deafening cannonade against the Russian defenses. Eugene's 4th Corps advanced on Borodino village, lightly held by Jaegers of the Russian Imperial Guard. After clearing the village, his infantry crossed the Kalacha and advanced towards the Great Redoubt, but were driven back with heavy losses. The Russians burned the bridge across the river, but did not launch a counterattack, and Eugene was able to move cannon into the village to put flanking fire on the Great Redoubt. In the center, Davout's 1st Corps began its advance against the Fleches, coming under heavy fire. While on the right, the Polish 5th Corps, ordered to take Utitsa, got held up in the woods and ravines. Their slow advance allowed Tushkov's 3rd Corps to send a division north to reinforce the Fleches defenses. Kutuzov, at his headquarters in Gorky, took little part in the battle, leaving tactical decisions to his subordinates. Barclay and Bagration had spent most of the summer arguing furiously over strategy, but in the hour of crisis, they put their differences aside. They could see the main French attack was falling on the Russian center and left. So Barclay ordered General Bagavout's 2nd Corps south to reinforce Bagration. Fighting around the Fleches intensified as the French captured one of the earthworks, only to be driven out by a Russian counterattack. Davout himself was injured in the fighting as he fell from his dying horse, but he refused to leave the field. When Russian cavalry counterattacked, Marshal Murat himself led the French cavalry forward to meet them. Ney's 3rd Corps now joined the attack on the Fleches. A charge by Russian cuirassiers forced Murat to take shelter in a square of Württemberg infantry. Murat, with his flamboyant dress and reckless courage, had now even made a name for himself among the Russians. The Cossacks in particular saw him as a kindred spirit and were eager to capture him alive if they could. To the south, Polish troops now took Utitsa, which the Russians set ablaze before withdrawing. But General Bagavut's reinforcements arrived just in time to shore up the Russian flank. Around 10 a.m., Eugène launched another attack on the Great Redoubt. It was briefly captured by Morand's 1st Division, before his men were thrown out by a ferocious Russian counterattack. The Russian army's 27-year-old artillery commander, General Kutesov, was killed leading one of these counterattacks. A heroic death, but a blow to the organization of Russian artillery for the rest of the day. Fighting continued to rage around the Flèche earthworks. Some counted as many as 6 major French assaults, involving 45,000 troops, with hundreds of cannon on both sides, pouring fire into the packed ranks. More than once, French infantry fought their way into one of the Russian positions, only to be driven out again at bayonet point. Junot's Westphalian Corps was sent forward in support, helping to clear Russian skirmishers from the woods to the south. General Bagration was close to the action, overseeing the defense of the Flèche, leading forward reinforcements and ordering counterattacks. Around 10 a.m., he was hit in the leg by shell fragments. Mortally wounded, he was carried from the field. Shaken by the loss of their iconic commander, the exhausted Russian infantry began to fall back. The French finally took the Flèche. Marshal Murat then led forward Friant's division, 1st Corps' last reserve, supported by waves of heavy cavalry on both flanks. Russian grenadiers formed squares to ward off the French cuirassiers, while their own guard cavalry fought the French in a giant confused melee, with heavy losses on both sides. The Russians resisted doggedly, but the combined onslaught of French artillery, cavalry, and infantry proved irresistible. As the Russians pulled back, Friant's infantry fought their way into the village of Semyonovskaya. The Russian center was in disarray and seemed close to breaking. Surely now was the time for Napoleon to deliver the knockout blow.
Not a clue. Whoa, oh my gosh, tongue twisted. I mean, I'm just watching in awe. So we're seeing Napoleon push back, and obviously in regards to that, it wasn't impossible, but it was a strategy in which there was going to be heavy casualties, and we saw that. But still, I gotta agree with the one marshal to come around the flank and push him. You know, the frontal attack, you know you're going to have heavy losses. There's really no point capturing the batteries, besides the fact that they're not going to shoot on you. Whereas the advantage of this, based off the geography, is it's looking down from, like, you know, high up. They're dug in. You're coming from the side kind of takes away some of that, you know, strategy. You adjust the battlefield into the way you want it. You know, we see Kutov's on top up there doing his own thing. So it's quite interesting on his decision. And I really do think that we are seeing a lot of Napoleon's ego come out. You know, his idea that he is invincible and he can't lose. Like, originally when he was in the Russian campaign, he thought it was going to be over in a matter of weeks. And then in those few weeks, he lost over half his men. So, I mean, there's just so much going on.
For most of the day, Napoleon remained at his headquarters near Borodino. Those around him later said that illness, as well as the exertions of the long campaign, had left him tired and irritable. As the Russian center buckled, Murat and his staff urged him to send forward his last reserve, the Imperial Guard.
He should have.
The Emperor refused. If there is another battle tomorrow, he asked them, where is my army? But he did make one exception. Barclay was continuing to move troops from his unengaged right wing to bolster the center. As Osterman Tolstoy's 4th Corps arrived behind the Russian center, French observers feared they were massing for an attack. So Napoleon ordered forward General Sorbier's Guard artillery. His batteries opened a devastating fire on the enemy. Yet even as they were mown down in their ranks, the Russian infantry stood their ground. On the Russian right wing, all remained quiet, so General Platov, commander of the Don Cossacks, proposed that he lead an attack on the lightly defended Borodino village. Permission received, Generals Platov and Uvarov led a force of 8,000 Cossacks and cavalry across the Kalacha River. They fell on French and Italian troops around Borodino with complete surprise, spreading panic and disorder. Grouchy's 3rd Cavalry Corps had to be pulled back across the river to drive off the Russians. Russian commanders saw this raid as a missed opportunity, but it had delayed the next French attack by 2 hours, and may have persuaded Napoleon that he was right to hold back his reserve. Around 3 p.m., the French launched their biggest assault yet on the Great Redoubt. Russian gunners targeted the French infantry advancing to their front, allowing French cavalry to outflank the redoubt and charge it from the rear. Saxon cavalry were first in, cutting down Russian infantry and gunners almost to the last man. It was an astonishing feat by the horsemen, against all the rules of war, and testament to the ferocity of the fighting. As Eugene's infantry consolidated their hold on the redoubt, he ordered forward all the available cavalry to exploit this success. But they were met and checked by the last Russian cavalry reserves. Eugene now implored Napoleon to commit the Imperial Guard. But again, the Emperor refused. "I will not destroy my guard," he told his staff. "I am 800 leagues from France, and I will not risk my last reserve." By 5 p.m., both armies were in a state of utter exhaustion. The battlefield was strewn with dead and wounded. Some infantry battalions could muster only a third of their strength. Cavalry could advance no faster than a trot. Gun crews were collapsing with fatigue. As dusk approached, fighting slowly died out across the battlefield. Napoleon and the French army expected the fighting to resume the next day. But by dawn, Kutuzov, having learned the full, horrifying scale of Russian losses, had ordered a withdrawal. The losses on both sides were enormous. Russian casualties are estimated at 44,000. French losses around 30,000, including 49 generals, 12 of them killed. Borodino would prove to be the bloodiest single day of the Napoleonic Wars. The Russian army could not fight another battle until it had received major reinforcements. And so Kutuzov decided that he must abandon Moscow. On the 15th of September, a week after his victory at Borodino, Napoleon entered the city. he would find it virtually deserted. And already, the first fires starting to burn. Thank you to...
I mean, interesting decision on Napoleon's part not to send in that reserve, based off losses. In hindsight, I think you can go either way. That it was a smart decision, it was a stupid decision. What we saw, my interpretation, is there's a lot of fatigue, there's a lot of carnage going on, and you send in this reserve unit. It's basically your most elite guard, your best trained troops, your preferred soldiers, and you're sending them in 8,000 strong. I mean, that's quite a bit compared to the Russians, 121,000, I believe. So, I mean, that's a significant size. There's a lot of casualties already. There's a lot of disorder. I mean, you can kind of rout and destroy the Russian army at that point. But at the same time, Napoleon is right in the fact that there are going to be other battles, depending on how far he wanted to push into Russia. Change that. That being said, I mean, the biggest thing in this time period is just being able to get supplies. It's a delayed process, and Napoleon's been pushing so far away that the Russians' best strategy was exactly what they're doing, was the scorched earth and just pulling back. Russia's so vast, you keep on taking your resources. You have the cities that are mini checkpoints, and you can keep on restocking up there. Whereas, this is early 1800s. Your supply lines are based off horse and wagon, take forever, and I mean, we're already seeing all that. And then on top of that, they're mentioning that Napoleon's angry, he's not feeling well, he has illness. So how much did that play a factor? So there's just so many dynamics going on, and it's definitely interesting to say the least, but I don't know. From here, it's just downhill. But anyways, I hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you did, please be sure to subscribe, drop a like, turn on those bell notifications, and as always, stay healthy, stay happy, and have a blessed day.